ladies and gentlemen, fellow Canterburyans, honoured guests, assorted media scum, it has fallen to me to say a few words at this juncture. Sometimes, you know, in life, such a duty can become a pleasure. Sometimes a pleasure can become a delight. Sometimes, rarely, but just sometimes, a delight can become a thrill. On a very few occasions, a thrill can even become a joy. But how often in one's life does a joy become a radiant, spinning dance of ecstasy? An almost erotic frenzy of such dazzling intensity that it pierces the heart with wonder and blinds the soul in an explosion of euphoric bliss. Not often. Anyway, to return to this evening. Jolly nice to be here. No, but shush. 800 years, ladies and gentlemen. It makes one speculate on the nature of time itself. Cambridge was already 250 years old when printing was invented. There's a story told during my undergraduacy of an American tourist who stopped a garden steward in one of the colleges. And he said, hey, fella, he said, how do you get your turf so smooth and perfect? I want a lawn like that back home. Oh, it's easy, sir, said the steward. It's really easy. Oh, here's what you do. You mow, right? You mow the lawn twice a day during the summer months, and you sand it against moss, right, in autumn. That's fall, as you would say, and in the spring, and you use a heavy roller at least twice a week. And then, after 200 years, voila. And there's another story about an American. It may even be the same American. In fact, probably was the same American, who was visiting the Cambridge Museum of Zoology, probably the same afternoon. And he falls into a conversation with a security guard who, for the sake of not taxing my accent too much, is actually probably the brother of the garden steward in the other college. And as you're probably aware, the Cambridge Museum of Zoology has a particularly fine collection of fossils, and of the Cretaceous in particular. And he looks at one excellent specimen, the American, and says, say, how old is that fossil? Oh, is it that one? Says the assistant. That one there, he says, that is 85,012 years old. And the American says, that is very precise. Is that like carbon dating? Is that how you can be so accurate? He said, well, I don't know about that. He said, it's just that when I came here, I was told it was 85 million years old, and I've been here for 12 years. I will return to the very special connection between Cambridge and America in a moment. But first I should draw attention to the problem, if you like, that one encounters when one tries to discuss an institution like Cambridge on an occasion like its 800th anniversary. It's very easy to fall to boasting. Boasting might be considered permissible on the attainment of such a grand old age, but it's not the Cambridge way. There is, of course, a great deal to boast about, as we've already seen from our amazing Sang et Lumière. There's Newton, there's Darwin, there's Milton, there's Byron, there's Wordsworth, there's Tennyson, there's John Maynard Keynes, there's Bertrand Russell and Ludwig Wittgenstein, Rupert Brooke and E.M. Forster. novelists into the 20th century we're very lucky to have with us here this evening. Sir Salman Rushdie. There's all those Nobel laureates, writers, poets, playwrights, theatrical knights, Sir Ian McKellen, Sir Derek Jacobi, Sir Peter Hall, Peter Schaffer, and many others. Thank you for that idiot. And there's always one, probably Fitzwilliam. There's Sir Trevor Nunn. Mathematical geniuses like Alan Turing and Ramanujan, economists, historians, most proudly of all, the true immortals whose flame will never be put out, that small band of Footlights alumni who appear on television a lot. But it's also easy to boast about the sheer, ravishing, lyrical beauty of the place itself, the timeless architecture, the willows stooping over the backs, the cobbled streets, the bridges, the courts, the colonnades, the roofs, and the pinnacles and the towers. Or one could lavish one's boasting on the traditions, the stewards and the proctors, the praelectors, the deans, the formal halls, the royal founders, the supervisions, the tripos stools, the esquire bedels, the scarlet days and subfusc days, the Latin, all that Latin, the aegratats and exiats and proxime accessits. I can still remember the grace that we scholars used to have to say, Benedict Domine nocet haec tua dona tua summa centuri quali lagatati, etc., etc. You all remember it. But unless some non-scholars have been allowed in. But while we're being classical, it's worth remembering the grand philosopher of flux, Heraclitus. I'm sure I speak for all of us in this room when I say that there is never a day when Heraclitus and all his precepts isn't in the forefront of our minds. But there is one precept I would draw attention to. You cannot step into the same river twice, Heraclitus said, for fresh water is always flowing past you. I visit Cambridge a little, not as much as I should or I would like to. I have the great good fortune to be an honorary fellow of my college, which is Queen's, but I don't get the chance to visit or to use my dining right. Well, actually, to hell with my dining rights, my parking rights. But Heraclitus's words are always borne in on me whenever I do visit. You cannot step into the same Cambridge twice. The stones and the chapels and the courts and the colleges may all be more or less as you remember them, but it's a different Cambridge. For your Cambridge was the sum of you and your friends. And that Cambridge has flowed away long ago into the world. It's seeped into history and culture, while new Cambridges have flowed in to replace it. For all the frozen music of its architecture, Cambridge is, one might say, a verb, not a noun. It is in motion. We may sentimentally allow it to fossilize in our memories, but that would be a mistake. For most of us, Cambridge is not a place, it is a time. I sometimes think if I had my time again and I was asked whether I wanted to go to Cambridge but with a whole different set of people, or to go to some other university, Hull or Southampton, or God help us, Oxford even, but with my friends, I would choose that alternative. For it isn't the architecture, sublime as it is, nor the punting on the cam, the bedders, the courts and the cobbles. It's the friends that matter. And that Forsterian, Bloomsbury, G.E. Moore doctrine of personal relations that resulted in E.M. Forster's favorite remark, if it came to the choice between betraying my friends or betraying my country, I hope I would have the guts to betray my country. A remark that enraged many, and which of course cannot but make one think of Cambridge's high doctrine of the sanctity of friendship and, of course, its proud record of spies, traitors, and degenerates. talking of degenerates, I don't know if any of you remember Albert Jaggers, who was the chief porter of Corpus Christi College. And he was the character on whom Tom Sharp based his figure of Scullion in his Porterhouse Blue novel and its sequel. There's a story which I've heard confirmed from two different sources that on one occasion Jaggers heard at about 1:30 in the morning very loud and raucous noises coming from an undergraduate's rooms, and he climbed the staircase, knocked on the outer oak, managed to open it, knocked on the inner door, no reply, opened it. The room was in darkness. He fumbled for a light switch, turned on the light switch, and illuminated a scene in which there was something like 14 undergraduates, all male, all naked. He looked around and he said, "I'm awfully sorry, sirs, I thought there might be some women here," and closed the door and left again. That is Cambridge. But but that spying thread that I alluded to, at its best, it reveals a side of Cambridge that always was and always will be unworldly and idealistic, even at the risk of failure, where the other place supplies us with an almost inexhaustible stream of politicians. Cambridge tends to turn out radicals, outsiders, skeptics, doubters, martyrs, the heterodox, the ornery, and the relentlessly logical. Cambridge produces martyrs and Oxford burns them, the old saying goes. And certainly Martyrs' Memorial in the other place still stands, and it's where those three Cambridge men, Cranmer, Latimer, and Ridley, were burned. It's not that Cambridge is left-wing and Oxford right-wing, certainly not. It's that if Cambridge has a snobbery, and we do, it is a very particular snobbery that is to do with integrity, logic, and the life of the mind, where Oxford sets more store by worldly success and worldly attainments. Virginia Woolf also noted, of course, the high, quick Cambridge gabble, which spoke very, 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 very quickly indeed, and contrasted with the assured Oxford drawl. And when it comes to idealism, hope, and an almost totally unworldly belief in progress and a journey towards perfectibility, Cambridge and the United States of America meet each other as natural fellows. Of course, it was 567 years into Cambridge's history before there was such a thing as the United States of America. But a good cuppa takes a while to brew. And I think we can all agree it was worth the wait. I love and am drawn to America for the same reason I love and was first drawn to Cambridge. America and Cambridge have this in common. Amongst much else, they are not destinations where you sit down and say, "There, that's it, I've made it, I've arrived." They are places that drive you forward, entities in whose very DNA are imprinted change and progress, betterment and restless inquiry. Many Americans are descended from Europeans who thought, no, we can do better than this, we can do better than all this poverty, all this oppression, let's up sticks, let's go. Cambridge is intellectually descended from those who thought, this Oxford's a shithole, let's get out of here. So, while, of course, when we celebrate Cambridge, we celebrated the glorious alumni, the academic preeminence and the glittering prizes, we perhaps should mostly celebrate with greater pride the integrity, the hope, the progress, and the promise. It's not about the last 800 years, it's about the next 800 years. And an 800th anniversary for Cambridge, held in America, is like an embrace. And I'm proud and happy to be here to celebrate it. So I bid you all, if you can, charge your glasses and lift them with me for a toast to America in Cambridge and Cambridge in America. Thank you very much. Thank you.